Okay, looks like I've got some sound, so I'm going to go ahead. And as I promised last night, and as I always do for BISS 1123, I chunk it into two different parts, and this is part number two. And I'm going to cover a couple of cases that we have due coming up. And I mentioned this last night, and just a quick review. Obviously, this is last night was the 4th of October, and this is just a follow-on. This is part two of last night's screencast. And as I mentioned, you had you had two quizzes due, okay? And then we talked about XLS 8. As I told you, you should be uploading these after I go through the workshop. We looked at this if statement in Action Plastics. We saw the use of conditional statements, and then we saw this copy of this cost estimate on XLS 9, and that's there for you to view and to upload for the workshop credit. So 8 and 9, and obviously we've done 7 before. Okay, so here was 8 and 9, and now I'm jumping a little bit further ahead on Thursday the 18th. Okay, we have the free fall days, so we won't have any class. I do have some resources there for you, and I spoke about them last night: business intelligence, the return on investment on analytics, and a site, Easy Excel, and how they handle regression. They have all types of resources over there for you. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, and just a quick repeat of that. What I'm going to do here in part two, and by the way, I have posted last night's screencast over in the announcements, so it's there for you to see. We're going to look at XLS 10, XL case number 10, okay? And I have an example for you that I want to talk about, and then I have 3 files that from our text that I've published here for you to look at and to go over. And then you can upload one of or all of them, or one of them for credit. I don't care. The reason, again, is I'm doing this is I provide you the screencast. I'm providing you an overview of what I did so you can look at it, all right? And you can get prepared for some of the hands-on exercises that will be in the second exam, and hands-on types of exercises as we get into the files and into the project for the course. Now, I want to mention something also. One of your colleagues asked me about my favorite function, and there are points attached to it. And if you guess my favorite function, here's what you need to do. You need to send me an email. Tell me what you think it is. And what you'll get from me is I will neither confirm nor deny that you chose the right one. But if you choose the correct one, if you choose my favorite function, then I'll add 50 points into your score at the end of the course. Okay. Now, all I'm going to say is this: is when you see it, it will be very, very obvious to you. So I hope you'll do some exploration of Excel and its functions. And when you see that function, you're going to, oh, okay, I get it. That's his favorite. Okay. Well, let's forge ahead here. And again, I have XLS 10, and I have an example for you, and I'm going to open it up. And then I'm going to download it. This is an example file. All right, and I'm going to open it up. And we'll take a look at it. Now, what we've been doing is we've been marching through the use of various functions of Excel and modeling, just like your text talks about, using building models, building templates. And so, and I mentioned this very briefly last night. This XLS10 deals with accounts receivable and those kinds of problems, and we're going to be working with it. And it also involves the use of the sum if statement and using VLOOKUP. And your textbook, the POTC textbook, I'll diminish this down for a second. Okay. Over here in chapter 21 is the sum if function. And this is actually figure 21.1 this is a part of the file that we're working with. Okay. Now, open this back up, and here we are. And here's the lookup table. Now, this company has done is it has divided its accounts receivables on the basis of some standard industry practices, where we say, okay, if the number of days due, and this really should be 1 to 30, but it's current. Anything that's due 30 days or less is current. Now, we're talking about a business who sells something to somebody, and that customer buys it on credit, or they sign an invoice to pay for it. All right. And so when they're 1 to 30 days, they're current. At 31 to 60 days, that's a second category, a little more serious. And then at 61 days, it's starting to get really serious. And at 91 days, it is definitely serious. And the reason is, and I think I went last night in the screencast, I even went out and showed everybody what it costs when people don't pay you. If you are their vendor, you lose the profits you thought you'd get, you lose cash flow, you're out the materials. And so if you're buying supplies from somebody else, up the supply chain, then you owe them money for the stuff you sold to the person who is your customer. This becomes problematic. So this firm, they do this. They sell things on time. This is a Blue Sky. This is an example. And this is a computer services accounts receivable database and aging report. We call it an aging report because we know this. The longer somebody goes owing you money without paying you, the less the chances are that you'll collect any substantial portion of that money. And I shared with you last night a couple of places where I had worked. American Finasco, Finasco, you can go out and find them on the web. They're down in Houston. They are a Christian company, or started by a man who's a very devout believer. And I told you the story of how he started, and their job is to work with debtors and be a negotiator on behalf of the debtors with creditors. Now, I also had some experience working with Experian Credit Services. They also, that was with American Financial Management. American Financial Management was a collection company, and they used attorneys. When they got an account, when one of their accounts said, "Here's somebody who hasn't paid me," an attorney sent a letter. It wasn't a process where typically somebody calls somebody and all that business. They said, "If you don't pay it in 30 days or make arrangements for payment, we're going to sue you." And so that was one of their approach. Now, American Financial Management is a very successful company, a very good company, very ethical, very honest, and they do fantastic work in the collections business. So I've worked both sides of the aisle, if you will. And again, I had some experience worked with Experian Credit Reporting Services, which American Financial Management sold. So I have a pretty good knowledge of understanding accounts receivable aging and the impact it has. Well, let's take a look at this, and we quickly did. And here's the report, and we have the account number, the customer name, the invoice, and the overdue category, because we're going to categorize these. And so what I'm going to do is come in here, and I'm going to do just add some visual acuity. This lookup table, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to this area, the lookup table, and I'm going to use some fill. And I'm going to use a nice, let's see, a nice red fill. Okay. And then I'm going to come over here to the report and at the ribbon. And I didn't cover any of this last night, so I'm just doing some things here just to make it look nicer and to guide the end user. This is part of that, you know, working with it kind of thing. And we'll put a nice little ribbon on there. And then I'm going to start here at 12. I'm going to come down and I'm going to make that all borders. Okay. And let me find the border there. Here it is. So it's nicely organized. And I'll come down here at the bottom on line 33, and I'm going to use that blue fill. Okay. Now again, why did they do this? Well, again, people in our culture tend to read left or right. And you'll see here's information about what's supposed to be done here and who's the owner, etc. Then we see the lookup table. And I'll just go ahead and to stay current or make it all consistent, we'll make the lookup table, we'll put all borders. So far, so good. All right. And I'm going to take this down just a hair. A bit too much, but you can see. And I'm going to come over to category totals. And I'm going to use all borders. And I think what I'll do over here is I'm going to use a nice fill. Oh, let's see what would be good. Well, there's a nice green. And that's okay. That's good. So we said that we're going to categorize these debts that are owed to us, okay? Now, before we get into using the VLOOKUP and the sum if, we're going to do one final thing, and that is we're going to look at how this is organized. Now, all this data is well put together, okay? We have a total down here, which is fine. But it's organized, so I want to find out how did they organize it. So I'm going to click, I've got that fill there, and I'm going to click custom sort, and it's already sorted for me. And notice how it's sorted. It's sorted by days outstanding. That, in other words, how long have these folks owed me money? And it's set on and values, and it's from the largest to the smallest because I'm concerned about these bigger accounts. And we did a little bit of work with this last night, and again, I'm adding in some stylistic things or formatting things just so that it's just a little visually, just not this blank thing you're staring at. And then we see the invoice amount, the largest to the smallest. So we have organized this table down here. With the account number, customer name, etc., on the basis of, first of all, how long have they owed me the money? And that's in descending order. And then secondly, how much do they owe me? And that's in descending order. And here we go. All right. So we have that all organized. Now, we also have some category table. And what we do here, what we're going to do over here in this little olive colored box, is we're going to categorize the debt, and for each category we're going to find out how much they owe us. And as you recall last night, we did that, and we even attached percentages, okay, to see where do we start. Now we know that stuff that's over 90 days is going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to collect. stuff that's 61 to 90 days can be tough. And as I mentioned something, what I try to do also, in addition to just going through this sheet and how to set it up, all that, is to share some wisdom with you. You say, what do you mean? If you want to see perhaps why I'm teaching this course, or if you want to see, do I have really any credibility to be with you as an instructor, go over to the OBU webpage and go take a look at my biography, and you'll see I have a lot of practical experience with this. And this is a common business problem of getting people to pay you when they owe you money. All right. So they categorize these on the basis of how many days it's been outstanding. And we looked at that last time, but I wanted to kind of go over it again and look at the files that are provided by your textbook. Okay. Now, I'm going to take this back up to 100%. So we'll lose some visual acuity. Now, here we have the lookup table. And we have, first of all, we've calculated the number of days overdue. All right. Now, how do we do that? Well, let's look, we'll click here. Before we do it, let's go up and look in the formulas and look at the name manager. And there we are. We see that they've used the name manager. Okay. And this also has a way that you can use a filter, okay, and then paste it. Now, if you wanted to break these all out, all right, and I'll just show you what I'm talking about. I can highlight the areas there, all right, and I'll go back over here to the home. And I will, and I'm going to filter the data. And you'll see the little filter squares. And I can select all. Okay. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select days outstanding. Okay. And I've got this full range. But really what I want to do is the overdue category. That's what I want. And I'm going to start with 31 to 60 days. So I'll deselect all of these, and I'll just select that one. And I'll apply the filter. Now I can take this, the data here, and I can copy it, and I can come down to a pre-made range and paste it in. Okay. Now there's some, we've got the current accounts, etc. But you can see we can use the filter. The textbook walks you through a whole long goblin of stuff. And that's all you really have to do is use the filter and then cut it, paste it, and put it where you want in terms of output ranges. I don't know. I think you can get the same thing accomplished using conditional function formatting. But if you had to do a report, and we'll go over here on the filter and we'll clear that, toggled out, okay? You could do that. So you could get those chunks and embed them maybe in a Word document, whatever. All right, now again, last night we looked at the amounts and then we have the days outstanding, and we'll scroll up here. And how do we figure out we have the days outstanding? Notice that it equals this. Now, this is the current, this is today's date, or the date set for that. And we'll pretend it's 7/15/2008. And we're going to take and subtract D12 from that. So we're going to, that's how we're going to compute the days outstanding. Now, as I mentioned last night, this is a formatting thing where the date there in E7 is treated as a number, all right? And then we subtract D12 from it, the days in that date, to get the number of days outstanding. Okay. Now we're ready, if we want to And you'll see how we got that in each case. Okay. Now, we categorize these using the VLOOKUP. And it's the vertical lookup, and your textbook talks about that, and they cover the sum if formula, okay? And we're over here in chapter 21. Yeah, they talk about the sum if and using that. So we're using that. And I mentioned last night, they talk about chapter 20, the various types of count functions that are there, okay? Whoops. Go back over here. In fact, let me go back here. Now, we can see the VLOOKUP, and I'm going to open the dialog box up and just show you. The VLOOKUP arguments, and that's why I like Excel so much, because it provides you these dialog boxes. It says, okay, what value are you looking at? Okay. Then you have to have a lookup table. This is a table array, and there it is. It mentions those: 1, current, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days, etc. And it's referencing over here in the lookup table. And that lookup table was defined up in the name manager. Then it says, okay, column index number. What do you want to return? And we want the second column. Okay, so we'll see current, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90. Now, if I chose 1 in the column index, I'd get just the numbers that are right here. Okay, and it gives me the output. And then all we'd have to do would be just to simply drag and drop it down, and we've got them all categorized. Now, once we've got them categorized, we want to know, okay, how much money do I have tight? How much money do I have at risk? Okay. Remember, if you're in a situation where you have a company who is your customer, all right, and they owe you money, you have become their bank. And the longer you become their bank, the more of a problem it becomes. And as I mentioned, this particularly in small and medium-sized businesses, trade credit, as this is called, is often generated by personal relationships. I'm your supplier. I sell you a pipe, for example, and we've had dinner, and we came to an agreement, and I sell you stuff. I ship the pipe to you, and then something happens, and you quit paying me on time. Okay. And so there's a personal aspect involved with it. And I shared with you my experiences when I'd go in to see a client when I worked with for American Finasco, and how we had to work the client through a whole series of steps. First, acknowledge how much trouble you're in. Because remember, how I found those people was through the legal papers, and they had been sued, or they had tax liens, etc. That's how I identify them. Well, we've got this category, and notice there's the VLOOKUP. And then as we just go down here to see it, just changes to F13, F14, all the way down. So we categorize them. Now, and again, I'm just giving a quick recap over what we talked about last night, but also some stylistic kinds of things to make this look nice. We come over here, and here we're going to use the sum if. Okay? I'm going to click here in cell J12, and here's the sum if. And I'm going to go ahead and take us to the form insert function, let you see. The sum if function says, okay, what range are you working with? And here we're working with G12 to G32. That is those categories, okay? And the criteria, our first criteria is I3. Our criteria is I3, and it says current, and then we sum the range, E12 to E32, and we find out how much of our money is current. Okay? No magic here. I'm going to come to the second one, 31 to 60 days, and I'm going to look at the sum if, and I'm going to go back to the sum if dialog box. And here's the only thing that changes, because we did the drag and drop, is the criterion. And this time it's I4. And if we came down here, pardon me, let me go back here for a second. Yeah, I5, I4, there's I5, this is I6, and I7. And so we get our totals by category, and then we get the total dollar amount. And here's the formula: sum J12 through J15, and it matches what we have over here, so we know we're in good shape. So we've categorized all of these. We've figured out how much money is owed to us per category, and this starts to tell us how much risk we've got, how much money we've got at risk inside this set of accounts. Now, there are times when a company just simply decides it's not worth their time and trouble to mess with people. So what often they'll do is, they'll sell these accounts to somebody called a factor. Okay, and a factor is someone who is a company who says, okay, I'll sign a note, and I will agree to take the liabilities that you've given me, the $12,000. Let's say I'm going to assign everything over these two here. Okay, and I would do this equal. Let's do this 15. So this is the worst stuff I've got. And I've got $3,000 here. Let me highlight that for you. Okay. And I've got $3,600, and I'm going to sell it to a factor. Now the factor will say, okay, I'll give you 30 cents on the dollar, and then anything I collect is mine. And most factors will do that. They'll also usually will take on some of these bigger amounts, the older amounts. They might take on everything that's over 30 days. And so you get the cash, and now that factor begins to contact your former debtor to say, hey, we've taken over this account, we're a factor, we're collecting, you need to make arrangements to pay us. If not, we're going to have to take legal action. Okay. A lot of companies use factors when they're desperate to get some kind of cash flow or something out of those accounts, because in most industries, once you get past somebody owing you money for 3 months, the odds of collecting it become very low. So this is part of one of those reasons we give you business problem analysis. And this is a classic business problem of identifying my receivables and trying to figure out and categorize them, and then look at how much risk we've got entailed with them. And last night we said, okay, could I do something like compute what percentage of each of these current totals represent? And that's easy to do. And I'll just put percent all AR, which means accounts receivable, and I'll click here, and I'll click copy, and then format painter, and boom. And I'll make that a wrap text, and then I'm ready to go, and this will equal and I'll just scroll this on down. That's giving me a division problem. Hang on a minute. I think I know why. This up here, and I'm going to put a $sign in front of J. So it says we're staying with the column. Now let's see if that will help us. That's weird. All right. I run myself into a conundrum here. Let me get this out. And this will equal what's current, A12, over J16. I should just be able now to drag and drop this down here. Let's see what I get. I know what I did. Here we go. I need to make J16 a full absolute reference so it stays as that constant. Now I'm ready. I'll add in and I'll drag and drop it. And then I should be able to sum this. I'll use the auto sum and I get 1. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put these into percentage forms. And I'm going to bold them up. I'll put this into a percentage form. It's 100%. So now, as I mentioned last time, one of your colleagues graciously saved you from a very awkward moment of silence. We know that 64% of our money is tied up in aged debt. In other words, debt that's over 30 days and outstanding. Okay, and so we've done that. We've categorized what these folks owe us, and we've even run the percentage that's accounted for. And so we see we have a problem building. Now, this 31 to 60 days, you could say, look, Dr. Harmon, be reasonable. Up to of the money owed to you up to 60 days, you've got 70%. That's true, okay? But I've got 30% sitting out here that's over 60 days old. And that's not so good. And in fact, of my total amount I have out there, where I'm playing the bank for somebody, basically I've got that 64%. So I need to do something about it. And there are some ways. And I'll just take a short, because to give you some additional information that the text doesn't carry. And having worked in this, I can tell you how it typically proceeds. Most of the time, if a company owes another company some money, the first thing that will happen is maybe if you have an accounts receivable department, or if you have an accountant, they'll go to the boss and say, hey, they owe us $3,000 we haven't heard from in 2 months. Okay, send them a letter. And in many companies, that might work. Sometimes it does. The next step is, if not, then if it's a large enough amount, you'll often have the owner of the business call the owner of the other firm, your creditor, and say, hey, your debtor, excuse me, and say, what's going on? Can we work something out? Because you're hurting my cash flow. I had to borrow some money to make stuff to sell to you. So what's the story? Now, if they get nowhere, the next step is they assign it to collections. There are some collection companies then that will start to make nasty phone calls and send nasty letters. And there are firms, American Financial Management was one. I worked for them. They're located up in Chicago. AFM didn't mess around with any of that. They had attorneys, and the attorney would send an official done letter, it's called a done, saying you have 30 days to pay this money off or make arrangements with me. If not, I'm prepared to sue you for the money. Okay? And so their approach worked, because the creditor would go, oh, they're not playing games. I better call and make some kind of an arrangement, because some kind of money and cash flow coming in the door is better than none. Okay? So there's a lot in this case that I want to add that helps you get more than just some of the spreadsheeting skills. Okay, I'm going to close this off because we've looked at it. And I'm not going to save any of the changes. All right. And let's go back to the module. And we were talking about case number 10. And case number 10 involved accounts receivable. It also involved using the VLOOKUP and involved using the SUMIF function. Let's look at this makeup. And this is over in chapter 21. This is 21 example 1, 21 figure 21.1. And here I am. And let me go over back. I'll move this out of the way. Oh, there we are. And there's figure 21, just a portion of it. And they give us some background about the case, as well as walking us through how to get those figures. Well, I'm going to do that for you here. All right, so we're going to go back over here. I'm going to move this back up. And I'm going to download this Makeup 2007. Okay. And I'm going to open it up. Now let's talk about what we're looking at here. All right. We'll enable the editing. Now, here we have, I assume these are some salespeople, and we want to find out what's their dollar volume in terms of how much they sell. So I've got Emily, all right, and here I'm going to use the SUMIF function. Now, I want you to notice something, okay? And I'll go up here, we'll go up to formulas. Now look at the name manager, and you're going to see that we have date, dollars, name, product, transaction number, and units. This will show you whatever values are in there, and this will tell you what it refers to, the cells in this worksheet, and does it apply, and it applies to the whole workbook. Okay? Now, we're going to look at this first of all, and here we have Emily. And here we're going to use equals SUMIF, name, A5, dollars. Now, let's look at the dialog box on this, and we'll get some insight. The range is called name, and the range starts with Betty, Halligan, Ashley, etc. Now, so we've got these names. And then criteria is A5, which is Emily. That's the criterion. Anytime we find the name Emily, we're going to sum that and do it till we're all through using the dollars category in the dollars column, which is over here. And I'll just come down and you see it sum at A5, A6, A7. So that way, we have their whole dollar volumes. Now, if we wanted to, okay, we could go ahead and we could sort and filter these. And what you could do is this, and I'll just show you real quickly. I'm going to take this stuff from these names, okay? I'll go home, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go to a different sheet. And I'm going to paste values, okay? Boom. So why did you, I'll go back here. I'm going to paste the values. You say, why did you do that? Well, this is going to let me go ahead and do some conditional formatting. And it's going to let me sort and filter this. And so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to start here in this new worksheet. And I'm going to do a little bit of preliminary analysis here. And I'm going to use the custom sort. and I'm going to sort it on the basis of dollar volume. And I'm going to go largest to smallest. Boom. And there we are. So we know who's our top salesperson. Okay? And again, just showing you some different things that we can do. Now, let's come down to this next row, and it's a little bit different. Here we're looking at things like how many returns did we have sent back to us? How much stuff was sent back? How many total dollars were sold after 2005, lip gloss, etc. And here we're using the SUMIF function again. All right, and let's look at it real quickly. And we'll pull up the dialog box. And here we have the range, and that's called units. You see how valuable the name manager is, how it simplifies so much for us. And then the criterion is less than 0. And then we have the sum range for the units. And we find that we've had 922 units returned. And we use the SUMIF again. You can see in this case we're looking for anywhere where the date is equal to or greater than 11205. And then we choose the dollars. And we'll go back and we'll look in here. So this is a nice template. Units of lip gloss. You say, so I could just basically create the same type of thing, name the columns, use the SUMIF. Yeah, for sure. And we do a check to see if everything comes up, the average, and we get Jen's lipstick sales, her average units, etc. We could do this for every single one of these folks. Okay? So that's really all that's going on here in terms of this account. Now, we'll go back up here to Vital Source. Okay? I'll close it off. And there we see it talks about these questions and how we answer them. Okay? So that's the makeup. And we'll scroll and we'll go back over here to the module. And now that's from chapter 21, figure 21.1. Then we have a lookup, another example of lookup. Now, look, listen, you have to upload XLS10. You can upload all 3 of these, or any one of these, or the example, and I'll know that you've watched the screencast and you heard me say that. All right? Any one or all of these is fine. It matters not. Now I'm going to open up the lookup XLS, and this uses chapter 3. So I'm going to go back over here into my table of contents. And I'm going to scroll back down to chapter 3, and we'll see the lookup functions. Now, I mentioned something last night, and I want to elaborate it on just a little bit. Things like VLOOKUP, which is vertical lookup, HLOOKUP, which is horizontal lookup, SUMIF, those are functions that let us mimic a database. And so a database is used to collect and categorize things, okay? And when we use SUMIF, for example, we're aggregating the sums, we're adding them up. If we use the VLOOKUP, we find a category, whatever. So we're using functions here in Excel that are very much like a database. And that's something we're going to see. Now, this file, let's look at it real quickly. Okay, and this is the lookup file. I'll go back over here for a moment. And we'll find some background on it over on let me do this. Let me close these other things, just kind of rolling through them every time. I'll close that, shutter this a little bit. This will make it a little bit easier to see what we're going on. I've talked about all that. So here we go. Now, we've got the example, and here's makeup, and that's from chapter 21, figure 1. And here we are at figure 3, chapter 1. Figure 3.1 in chapter 3. And here it is, and they talk about the VLOOKUP, and here's, they give us write a formula to compute tax and income tax. Okay, and let's look at this. Lookup. So we're going to do some work on our taxes. Another typical business problem that we have. And we'll enable the editing there. And we have a look at a table for looking up our taxes. Now the text, and I'll diminish this for a second. We'll go back to VitalSource, back to the textbook. Formulas that computes the tax for any income level. Okay? That's all it's designed to do. Well, let's go into the spreadsheet. We'll take a look at it. We'll see. And here's the lookup tables. Here are the lookup tables, and that's D6 to E9. So to make this, and the authors show us this lookup equals D6 to D9, and we could further denote that just simply by adding some borders, and we could give it some fill. Okay, and then we have the lookup H11 to 15. Again, we have a H11 to we have a lookup. Number 2 is H11 to I15. So here's H11. Okay, same story there, and here they did some. Use the VLOOKUP, and they created it true or false. I don't like this because I think it's so bare bones, and I think it's a little bit confusing. But the authors present that to you as an example, so I included it. You can tell I don't like it. Now, let's go back and we'll close this makeup. That will close that one. Changes. And here we are. We're back in the text. Let's go back over here, and here's a second file. Okay. Well, we had the example, and then these 2 files from our textbook, 3 files, excuse me. Here's the lookup temporary, and that works with figure 3.2. All right, and you can take a look at the narrative to see what's going on. Okay? And I have the file there for you. It's just the second part of that case. Again, I don't like how they've laid this out because it's a little nonsensical, and I don't care for it. I think the example I gave you today, the example file really does a better job. That's why I use some of them, because some of them I've developed and worked with over the years and kind of tweaked them, and so I know what I've got. But these are the things out from your text, and the text gives you some verbiage. It covers about how to do that. Okay? All righty. So that covers chapter 10, all right? And I want to visit with you quickly. And down here on chapter 11, all right? This deals with some capital budgeting. And that's over in chapter 8 and chapter 17. And those are in the practice files, okay? But I've uploaded them there for your convenience. Yes, thank you, you're welcome. And here we're going to do some capital budgeting, all right? And I think what I probably will do is, let's see, next Tuesday will be the 11th. So I think probably what I'll do is I'll start with case 11. No, next, yeah. No, wait a minute. That's week 10. That's November, pardon me, that's December 1st. November 1st, excuse me. Yikes. And so we've talked about 10. So I think for next week, which would be, well, on the 25th, I think we'll go ahead and we'll talk about case 11 next week and go from there. So I think I'll pretty much call this a day, and I think we're good to go. So next week, we'll take a look at XLS 11, and then also talk about, well, since I got you here, well, next week we'll also talk about the exams that are coming up. Okay? All right, folks, so next week I'll talk about XLS Case 11 and the exams, the stuff that's covered here in week 10. All right, I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording.